when we were approaching the environment and natural resources going in the 2019 election, one of the things that really helped guide our environmental policy was the basic understanding of a couple things. First of all, the percentage of greenhouse gas emissions that are uh, are there because of human activity. So that's a certain percentage, and then you take the percentage of that Canada contributes, and you start dealing with a percentage of a percentage of a percentage, and looking at that economic cost here in Canada, the misery that some of these draconian measures will cause here at home versus the amount of reductions that will actually be achieved. You have to approach that through that lens. The second thing you have to do is you have to look and see what other countries are doing, because we could shut everything off. Every Canadian could agree that we're going to shut everything off for a month. We're not going to drive. We're not going to heat our homes. We're not going to run our refrigerators. We could shut everything off in Canada, and China's emissions would dwarf us in a matter of weeks. A matter of days. So we have to have that in mind, because a molecule of CO2 doesn't need a passport to travel around the world. And if China is emitting these massive increases in CO2, then for Canada to kneecap ourselves, it won't have any impact. All we're doing is we're going to be displacing, that production is going to leave Canada, where it's held to an environmental standard. We say to countries who are mining or developing oil and gas or manufacturing here, you must adhere to these environmental standards. Well, if we chase them away and we say, hey, great news, Canada's reduced its emissions by so many tons of CO2, we say, okay, well, now that production's taking place in China without those environmental standards, and now instead of maybe 10 tons of CO2 on a weekly basis, now it's more like 20, we're actually worse off. So our approach was to combat global emissions and to start to say, what can Canada do here? If we took a unit of production away from China as it relates to, for example, aluminum, our aluminum industries in Quebec and in other places, they have access to clean hydropower. So the CO2 emissions for producing a ton of aluminum is much, much lower in Canada. In China, they run their electricity off of coal-powered electrical plants. So we can actually lower emissions by producing more here. The global levels would be reduced. Canadian emissions would our own domestic policy can leverage our clout to lower those global emissions. But unfortunately, Justin Trudeau is ideologically bent. This is like this government is like an NDP campus club at a university, in power. Just don't bother them with the facts. Just all the stuff that works on paper that never works anytime it's been tried. This is what they're actually doing, and it's pretty scary. We can laugh and we can make jokes about it a little bit, but it's a little bit of gallows humor here in Saskatchewan, because we see the impact. We see the layoffs. We see the steel plant here in Regina being basically idle for the past few months, and it's sad, and it's affecting people's lives and livelihoods. And we've got a prime minister who just keeps putting salt in the wounds.